Over 30 years ago, the Regional Arts Commission was formed to promote, encourage, and foster the arts and cultural institutions in the St. Louis region. They've been doing just that, and now, under the leadership of Executive Director Felicia Shaw, the RAC is poised to become even more of a regional arts leader. Join HEC TV President Dennis Riggs and meet Regional Arts Commission Executive Director Felicia Shaw.
Tell me, who is Felicia Shaw?
Well, right now I'm this newly returned St. Louis boomerang. I was born and raised here, went to high school. When I graduated, I literally vowed I would never return. When I graduated from Northwestern, headed straight for California and stayed there for 35 years.
What brought you back to St. Louis?
Well, it's an interesting story. St. Louis is, in my opinion, was so backwards. And, still is one of the most segregated cities in the country. And I wanted something different. I wanted people who thought more broadly, more worldly. But I was at a point in my life where I was really thinking about what to do next. Too young to retire, but old enough to have a wealth of experience that I wanted to put to use in the arts as an arts administrator. And I was sitting at my computer at the San Diego Foundation where I was working as a director of arts and culture, and all of a sudden my Twitter feed just started blowing up. And it was Ferguson. The community that was literally only about 20 minutes from where I grew up was literally on fire. The civil unrest was in full swing. And I saw young men and women, African-American kids jumping in and out of stores. The looting was happening by that time. There was unrest going on. And at that moment, I was embarrassed, to be totally honest. I was totally embarrassed. Look at what's happening to the city that gave me so much. Then, as these young people started talking to the press and talking about what actually happened with Michael Brown's shooting and the things that led to that, the unrest, I started to hear their voices and their pain and started to remember some of the reasons that I left St. Louis so many years ago. And I felt incredibly sad. I felt that people like me, perhaps, if we had stayed and tried to work with St. Louis and make it a better place, maybe something like this wouldn't have happened. And I think the stars were in alignment. I got a call from a friend who was a headhunter, and I literally don't know to this day if she was thinking of me or she was setting me up. Mm-hmm. So we're just catching up over the phone, talking about things. And before we got off the phone, she said, oh, by the way, you're from St. Louis, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I'm from St. Louis. She says, there's an opening at the Regional Arts Commission, and they're looking for a new ED. Do you know anyone who might be interested in that position? And I said, you know what? I think I do. 6 months later, I was here.
Now you saw something that could have made you say, that's why I left St. Louis, because of that kind of mistreatment.
Yes.
And you could have said, I made the right decision.
I made the right decision.
I'm staying in California. But
right.
You decided maybe I should go back to a place that I didn't really connect with and make a change.
There has to be some way that the arts can help. I didn't know how, but I'm here now to discover what that could be. Everything that I am today, outside of what my parents and my church and school contributed, I got from St. Louis. That grit, the resiliency, that practical, down-to-earth nature that people always commented about. But I hadn't given St. Louis anything. I left, and I never came back to contribute. And I thought at this time in my life, it's time. It's time for me to return to see, now what can you do?
What do you think you can do?
The first thing I can do is lead us forward. St. Louis is an incredibly arts-supporting community, unlike anything I've ever seen. We're really set up for success. There aren't very many agencies like us across the country where the community had the vision to mandate that a portion of our hotel motel taxes be set aside specifically for the arts. So we don't have to go and beg for our money. What the board charged me with was, we want to go in a new and fresher direction. what do we need to do to change and address today's community? What do people in St. Louis want from us? How do people today participate in the arts differently than they did in 1985? How do we need to evolve and lead these organizations forward so that we can become more relevant to the community, more impactful? How can we have a more measured difference in the livelihood of people who live here, as well as the arts and culture community?
What has surprised you about the job that you hadn't expected?
The first thing I have to say, for a community our size, the sheer number of nonprofit arts organizations that have come into existence over the years. I think per capita, we must have more than most communities our size. This presents an opportunity and a challenge. Having so many different organizations to care about, to advocate for, to understand how this one is different from that one and what particular niche do they feel is a bit overwhelming. When I got here in 2015 with the idea that I was going to see them all in 1 year, I am still working down that list.
So there's a rich artistic fabric here.
It's
You
so
only
rich.
have so much that you can do to help. How do you choose?
The idea of looking at our total industry and saying, how can we support those that really have momentum, that really are making an impact, and encourage those that are struggling, but invest more in the ones that seem to be making progress. Somehow St. Louis is going to have to wrestle with the idea that to maintain our status and to become a truly great city, we're going to have to choose. And then when you look at the demographics of St. Louis, the people who live here, you want to make sure that they see themselves, that everyone sees themselves on the stage, in the concert halls. How do we build and raise up those organizations that are small, grassroots, and struggling, but doing great work? So a lot to consider as we think about the fact that we only have so much or so little.
That's a tough job.
That's a tough job. And then how do we partner and leverage with the other organizations that are also trying to support the arts? I think we all need to be much more strategic. We need to talk to each other, communicate about what our priorities are, figure out where we can do the highest and best work together.
Is there any one thing you'd say, I'm really proud of that over it all right now?
The jury's still out, but I'm currently doing something that I promised the board I would do when I joined RAC, and that is create a comprehensive cultural plan for the region. What are the goals and strategies that the people embrace? Not just what the arts organizations want you to do, because I kind of know if you ask an arts organization, how could I better serve you? They'll probably say, well, could you give me more money?
Yes, exactly.
We kind of know what they're going to say. But we hadn't had a chance to have a conversation with ordinary people to say, how do you value the arts in your life? What is the value of creativity for you on an ongoing basis? And then how can the arts come to bear to make St. Louis a better place to live? So we're in the midst of that cultural planning process right now. It's called Evoke STL. And the idea is to evoke a conversation, a dialogue with ordinary people about the role and the value of the arts in their lives. Then how can we bring what you do to bear on making your neighborhood a better place, your workplace a better place, to improve your health overall, to impact the way you deal with your church? We believe that the arts can sit at all of those tables. How can we make your community safer by making it more vibrant? We want to have those conversations, not just with arts organizations who already pretty much have it figured out what they want to do. Now we want to ask the community, what do you want to do?
For every few years, you do a survey on the value of arts to the community. I don't know that a lot of people really understand the economic impact.
Yes.
How big is it?
The economic impact of the arts is so strong here in St. Louis. 19,000 jobs, full-time equivalent jobs, are created from the investment that we make in the arts. Think about every organization and the spending that they do. They have marketing companies that are working with them, catering companies. They employ the security guards. They employ people like me. The return on investment is phenomenal. We make a considerable impact on our economy each and every day.
Well, one that's very visible to a lot of people is the St. Louis Art Fair in downtown Clayton. It chokes the streets with people and brings in millions of dollars.
And these people, many of whom come from out of town, what's the first thing we know they do? They stay in our hotels. They generate hotel-motel taxes. Those hotel-motel taxes go back in the pot, and they help support the arts organizations who in turn are able to provide free tickets to kids. It's a great ambassador for St. Louis because it presents itself well. It brings people from other places here. It shows them a great time. They have to leave a little money behind. And then we all get a chance to, in one singular place, see so much great work. The only other event that I think rivals it here is Festival of Nations. What an incredible endeavor to have that many people from different backgrounds all together. But what a love fest.
The theater scene in St. Louis, that totally surprised me. I had no idea it was as large as it is.
Well, it's huge and it's growing. So we have everything from the St. Louis Rep, which is our largest. And then we have little companies like Smoking Monkey Theater, Tesseract. We have some companies that do productions that would stand up against off-Broadway. Stages that does these incredible Broadway productions, and they're very well patronized. We have one of the oldest African-American theater companies, the Black Repertory Theater, is here, and they've been in existence for over 40 years.
The largest outdoor and the oldest outdoor theater west of Mississippi, the Muni.
I love to tell the story about the Muni is where I saw my first live production, and it's magic. You're out there under the stars, the lights go down, and the music comes up. And I remember getting this little butterfly in my stomach as I was watching, I think it was Robert Goulet.
That's a big name.
On a clear day, and to see it all unfold on the stage for this little girl from St. Louis, I was in love. I was absolutely in love. And the Muni persists today. Other outdoor theaters like those have come and gone, but the Muni is still with us and is such a star.
Just evidence of the breadth and depth of theater community here that we have.
Next year, we'll be hosting the TCG, the Theater Communications Group, which is the National Association of Theater Companies across the country. They've chosen St. Louis to have their annual conference here. And I think it's a testament to how well regarded St. Louis is when we think about the theater industry.
It sounds like you're back in love with St. Louis again.
I am so in love with this place. It's exasperating still, the speed at which things don't happen. But at the same time, I almost feel like I'm in a new territory because St. Louisans do have a sense of freedom and liberty. They feel like if you have a good idea, sounds reasonable, let's do it. Let's give it a try.
You have favorite places here?
I am in love with the St. Louis Art Museum. That place is amazing. And when I go in, I almost have to ask myself, am I still in St. Louis? I should be in New York or Chicago. The collection.
Amazing.
Amazing. And it's for us. It's our collection. What vision our community leaders had years ago when they established that institution and said it would be for all of us, and then made sure that the collection was the highest quality You can go there and spend time with works that the Metropolitan Museum of Art would love to have.
Absolutely, and some of the things we curate here that go to the Victoria and Albert in London and other places.
Exactly. Forest Park is amazing. You can be in the city, but if you get deep into the park, you can almost not hear any cars. Having grown up here and gone to the Jewel Box and the zoo, oh my gosh.
Do you have a wish list for RAC?
We have a gallery on the first floor, and it's a wonderful space. I want to invest more in that gallery space. I want it to become St. Louis's municipal gallery, and I want to figure out a way that it becomes more well-known, that we can pay more guest curators to organize shows there. The Del Mar Loop here is really growing and really blossoming. So I really want that gallery to be a showcase for so many more artists. The second thing that I'm really interested in doing is on my wish list is the schools. I think it's a crime, actually, that not every child has access to a well-rounded education that includes the arts. And I'm trying to figure out, what is the entry point for that? Is it by integrating the arts into the curriculum so that we're using the arts to teach math and history and English? Or is it arts and culture as enrichment? So I have this wonderful opportunity made possible by Wells Fargo advisors, who also recognize the role of the arts in making young people just better people. So they've granted us $1 million over the next 4 years, and we're partnering with them, and we intend to match that $1 million. But the idea is to use the arts as an enrichment tool, not just to expose young people, but to use the arts as a tool to help them bridge the diversity chasm that exists between them and other cultures. We intend to serve about 2,000 kids over this pilot 4-year timeline, but we're just testing the idea of using the arts to bring these kids together with these kids together to help them learn about each other, learn about themselves, so that when they enter high school, they enter the high school as much more confident, understanding, empathetic people.
What brought you to the arts?
Well, again, growing up here in St. Louis, you always begin with family, and my parents believed in arts engagement. Whatever we wanted to pursue, they found a way for us to do it. I can recall the very first experience I had where I knew that I would always be involved in the arts. I was first grade, Farragut Branch School here in St. Louis, Miss Beach, and she decided to introduce us to Gershwin. And the way she did it was, she passed out a sheet of paper to everybody, and then she handed out the crayon box, and she said, I want you to take all of the crayons out that have blue tones. And then she said, I want to introduce you to a composer by the name of George Gershwin. And he wrote this piece of music called Rhapsody in Blue, and I want you to listen to it. And she told us about George Gershwin as his background in New York, and that he was Jewish, and that she wove in all of the humanistic parts of who this man was. Now, composer, and she's using all these words about jazz and improvisation. And this is public school now, right. First grade, and this is a brilliant teacher. And then she puts on the music, and it comes up, and I was transformed. And I closed my eyes, and I began to draw with these colors, these blues and purples. And something in me, even then, and it must have had a transformational experience because I'm over 60 now, and I still remember it. I knew that I would always be involved in the arts, and I would always be involved with things that involve people who could make such beautiful things come out of themselves.
I just see a big circle here, that the arts changed you as a young child, and now you want to use the arts as a tool to change other children.
I've been blessed that my parents had the foresight and a couple of nickels to rub together to make sure that I had that experience in my life. And I think if I could help others have that same type of experience, they'll go through their lives thinking of possibilities, thinking of open doors rather than closed ones, thinking of what could be done rather than who could stop you.
How has working in the arts changed the way you experience the arts?
I don't have any other way of gauging the world than through the lens of the arts. I view everything as a creative process, that you begin with that blank sheet of paper, and we begin to fill it in with color, fill it in with perspective, fill it in with ideas.
Well, we're surrounded by technology. We have technology in our pockets and our briefcases.
We do.
How is technology impacting the arts?
Technology has impacted us in positive and maybe not so positive ways. When you think about that cell phone that we have in our back pockets, people are able now to curate their own creative life. I'm sitting here talking to you, and I can whip it out, and in the matter of seconds, I can make a movie. And before you tell me, don't post that, everyone around the world could see you in whatever means I choose to depict you. So people have this curatorial license. It makes them think they're artists. And I'm not saying that they don't have a creative spirit, but it almost makes them minimize the amount of work and training and time and passion that goes into being a full-time artist. So the technology has simplified our ability to create, which is great, because I know a lot of artists, they like that too. But it's also, I think it has cheapened in a way the sweat and the technical aspects of whirring a work of art into existence. And then the other thing that technology has done is made everything so instantaneous. The hours and hours that artists put in to create a work seem to drift away with technology, because now people think, I want you to do it on demand. And so you want it right now. When artists take months, years to bring something into being.
What is your vision for this organization in the future, your goals, your hopes?
Well, right now, we're working to build that vision. We're working to answer that question. The cultural plan is projected to be completed in the first quarter of 2018. That plan will be informed by the suggestions and ideas and feedback, we hope, from hundreds and hundreds of St. Louis residents. Once we hear from them, the consulting firm that we're working with will compile it all and give us back a set of recommendations that will help inform what that vision should be. So I am not going to step into that space and pretend to know what it should be until I hear from the community. But I will say this, the Regional Arts Commission should be repositioned to be much more actively engaged, more publicly facing than we have been in the past. Now we need to shift our focus and say, we are a service organization committed to responding to the needs of the community with our arts and culture partners. So we are looking to be publicly facing activist organization that is listening to the community, responding to their needs, and working in partnership and collaboration with a host of organizations, from schools, the police, social service agencies, businesses, to make St. Louis a better place.
Well, what would you like people to know about Felicia?
I hope that people will say things like, because she was here, I had a better relationship with the arts, and the arts helped my life, helped me thrive, helped me become a more creative person. And by being more creative, I made a contribution to the community. I'm a cheerleader for St. Louis now that I'm back. And I just hope the very, very best for our community. We deserve it. We're a great city, and I want everybody to know about it.